economic system, what I have to say to you in another economic system is, can you learn the lessons from what happened over the past 40 years? And if you say, well, there's a sense in which globalization began with Bretton Woods, by the end of the 70s, we had a picture of the world, or at least part of it, rather like the diagram on the slide. Running, if you see each of those discs is a separate country. So I could have put 150 or 170 discs, but there's just 2. But running through the middle of them is a central core. That central core is global capitalism, technology, and information technology. Those who control the core have fundamentally major powers in the world. Each of the discs represents a separate country. It's a simple model, but the real issue is that the global substructure represented by my red core runs through many countries in the world. It consists of the economic system, the technological system, and especially information technology. And those who control the core actually have tremendous power. But you see, it's not a power of democracy. Not one of those people who control the core have been elected by the people. They are the shareholders and the owners of capital. And it's perhaps difficult to think of the type of power and so I picked out a couple of examples. You see, if you think of a bank like Goldman Sachs, which we read about every day, it has 161 stockholders. Its annual profit was $2.2 billion. Now think of a country like Tanzania. Goldman Sachs is $2.6 billion. Tanzania has a gross national product of $2.2 billion. That's less money than Goldman Sachs. But the Goldman Sachs money is distributed to 161 stockholders. Tanzania has 25 million people. So the difference is the power of one small group of people controlling the capital greater than another country. Or let's even think of those of you who follow Facebook. Facebook privatized a week or two ago. And at the time of its privatization, its shares were worth more than the value of Argentina. One company, one country. But you see, the turn of the 21st century. The wealthiest 5% of the world's population owned 1/3 of the global income. As much as 80% of the world's population owned. Indeed, the income of the 49 poorest countries in the world was roughly the same as the income of the 3 richest men in the world. Now let's take News Corporation as another example. We all know a News Corporation. The Murdoch Empire. It operates in 9 different countries, 9 different media, on all 6 continents. Includes Sky Latin America, digital satellite services, Allentown and Fox, and many, many other corporations. In fact, on top of all that, it owns 120 newspapers and 30 or 40 corporations. Now, until last year, no politician tried to touch the power of the Murdoch Empire. But at the moment in Britain, we're seeing something quite new. We're seeing the politicians attacking and trying to dismantle the practices of this vast corporation. But what does this power give to these corporations? Well, you time the number of minutes in every hour that you read adverts, and you see adverts on the television. 6, 7, 8. Who controls them all? There are 4 major news companies reporting news on the television. We are living in a world, whether we like it or not, that is quite totalitarian. It's controlled by the power of advertising. And to a very great extent, you see, those who control those companies have vast power. And so society's culture is dominated by global capitalism. And that includes its educational system. And it's the changes in the educational system that I want to spend most of my time. But you see, the concentration of power doesn't lie with the politicians. For the myth of democracy is that we elect those people with power. But let me look at this diagram here. I'm sorry you can't see the whole of it because the inserted picture is in the way. But look, that disc represents any one of the countries in the global world. In the middle and at the top is that global core. And around the global core are the international agencies like the World Bank, like UNESCO, like the European Union. And it's only on the 3rd level do we get to the national. That's when we start electing people with power at the third level, not the first or the second level. So the myth of democracy is that we elect those with power, that we only elect those with less than ultimate power. Then the last two rings are the regional, and the one that you can't see, the local. But you see, the point is that for as long as those people in the core provide what the people on the outside want, then they're safe. So you think of the Murdoch Empire, and it provides television entertainment, exposure to news, exposure to sport, film, and enjoyment, and advertising. But when this is coupled with cheap food, and more you're seeing it here, restaurants opening everywhere, then there's a lot of people in the world who are very satisfied with their life. And you see, if people have enough income and they have enough food, there's a very big question we have to ask. Why should they get up and fight for the rights of those whom they don't know? Why should the wealthy half of the world fight for the rights of the poor? So the fundamental question one wants to ask is, who needs democracy? If what we're seeing is a core providing and satisfying 3 billion people, and you see, for that 3 billion people, the city of God, the new city, may just be appearing on the horizon. It's the other 3 billion who live on $2 a day or under. For them, the city of God or the city of man is a long way off. And you see, the global core only exists to make huge profits so that it can sell and consume. It's not there to be concerned about the other 3 billion. But in order to do it, it needs two things. You see, it needs natural and human resources. And they are necessary for the global core to survive. And that brings me to the questions about professional education. In order to survive, the global core needs natural and human resources. And so what do we see? We see natural resources being utilized by vast amounts by the companies who are seeking to make profit. Water and oil pumped from beneath the earth's surface, timber cut down, natural habitat being destroyed, the world's climate being put at risk, the planet's resources are being used in a rather uncaring manner. George Monbiot wrote a book that summarizes this democratic society we live in. He called it the captive state. Politicians are captive. And it was here, in Brazil, in 1992, that the United Nations Conference on Human Resources, Development, Environment and Development, adopted the Rio Declaration with its 27 declarations. It was reaffirming a conference held in Korea 25 years previously. But when the Good Laws Report was published by UNESCO just 10 of those years ago, 15 years ago, learning the treasure within, it popularized a lot about learning. It popularized learning to do, learning to be, learning to live together, and learning to know. What it omitted was learning to care for the planet. And this was crucial considering what's happened since. And a recent book on the subject called Environmental Education in the 21st Century highlights the problem. It says environmental education is a field characterized by a paradox. Whilst there are few people in the world that doubt its urgency and importance, the importance of learning to live in a sustainable way, environmental education holds nowhere near the priority position in formal schooling around the world that this demands. But you know as well as I do, and from the diagrams I've just produced, it's the state who doesn't have ultimate power over those resources, even over its own resources. It's those large corporations and concerns. So, the next point is perhaps we are destroying the world before we can build that city of man. And so now I want to move on to the next point, which is the crucial point. Human resources. For in order for the capitalist poor to produce its goods and services, it needs to mold human resources as well as utilize natural resources. And just before my career began, American economist called Schutz wrote an article in which he said that economists have always shied away from using the term human resources. And he wrote, our values and beliefs might inhibit us from looking upon human beings as capital goods, except in slavery. We are not unaffected by the long struggling society on indentured service and to evolve political and legal institutions to keep men free from bondage. These are achievements we prize highly. Hence, to treat human beings as wealth that can be augmented by investment runs counter to deeply held values. Schutz's beginning are ones that I feel we still need to consider. It was Immanuel Kant, over 200 years ago, who said human beings should always be treated as ends and never of me. But perhaps only when we build the city of God or city of man will people cease to be me. We have had forced employment, slavery, etc. over the years. And we have learned to use the least powerful, in fact, for other people's ends. The city of man might have been that place where people learn to dwell in freedom. We need to live together as the Delors report suggested. And so the human being, if we are going to be used, has to be used to produce the goods and services of the poor. People have to be made into workers, often knowledge workers, as technology makes over many of the more mundane and manual tasks. But even as the Palestinian pages do, raises questions that need more careful discussion than I think we have time for now. But there is a sense in which we are personalizing people if we see them only as resources. But you see, if we think about the knowledge underlying the type of society we live in, and the knowledge that we also teach, Kerr and his colleagues warned us in that quotation with which I opened this talk, that the dominant knowledge will be scientific and technological. If you stare in his book on the knowledge society, he pointed out that the knowledge society doesn't use the whole spectrum of knowledge, only the scientific and technological endpoint. And I saw this in my own career, because in the economic crisis at the start of the 1980s, higher education was cut back. And the first two departments in my own university to be closed at that time were the departments of philosophy and the departments of home economics. For they were deemed dispensable at the time of economic cutback. Later, we also lost the education department as another one that was dispensable. And other universities in the West have done some similar things, curtailing departments that are not using practical knowledge or not making profit. Lyotard, for instance, suggested that higher learning will have to continue to supply the social system with the skills fulfilling society's own needs, which centre on maintaining cohesion. In the context of delegitimation, universities and institutions of higher learning are called upon to create skills and are no longer ideals. So many doctors, so many teachers in a given discipline, so many engineers, so many administrators. You see, the transmission of knowledge in universities is no longer designed to train an elite capable of guiding a nation towards its emancipation, but to supply the system with players capable of acceptably fulfilling their roles. Further and higher education, then, has changed. And what's changed is the speed with which knowledge is changing. 100 years ago, Max Scheler talked about the positive knowledge of mathematics and natural sciences and technological knowledge that changed every hour, he said there. And he called them artificial because they were changing so quickly. And it's the global core that needs that artificial knowledge. And so universities are encouraged to research, both universities and other companies and corporations are also encouraged to do research. And there's been considerable pressure on universities to do that. But the core needs an educated workforce. And so with that professionalisation, the substructures always need a ready supply of educated workers. And so the occupational structure changed in the 70s with an increase of so many more knowledge workers and with the nature of the universities. Occupations regarded as semi-professionals began to professionalise, seeking to establish themselves within a university context. And so we saw the growth